morning. Such a wonderful intro. Thank you. Well, now for something completely different. We have been offered a mission if we choose to accept it. I received an email from the White Eagle Lodge in England. It's the same White Eagle that we get our divine dip from. And today is their Healing Earth Day. And so right now they are doing ceremonies and meditations to help heal the earth. So we thought it would be cool and powerful to connect with their energy over there and give a blessing to the earth. So if you choose to accept this, then I will read their meditation out and we will arch over like a rainbow to connect with them. And if you choose not to, if you would just send love from your seat from where you are to the earth, that would be great too, okay? Yeah, so please get comfortable in your chairs and close your eyes. Oh wait, you have to open your eyes. I forgot one part. In their meditation, they mention the six-pointed star, which is their symbol for God. And I just wanted to show you. So when it comes up, when I read it, the six-pointed star, that's the visual for you to have, okay? All right, so now you can close your eyes. Take in a deep breath and relax your energies. And we warmly invite you to join in thought and heart with us in our Earth Healing Day while we are still in the radiance of the summer solstice. Working prayerfully together on the inner planes is very powerful, and together we can make a real difference. Let us join together in a great community of spirit and be part of a beautiful flow of light to the earth and the world of nature. So see a column of light coming down and surrounding Inner Quest and all of us in this sanctuary. And feel or see a light in your heart. And with this light in your heart, feel a desire to be of service and support for healing of our Mother Earth. And let this light in your heart gather, grow. Let it grow and pool. Let it pool in your heart, so that it overflows out to merge with the big column of light that is here with us. And with intention, let us lift our energy up the column of light. And let our IQ angels guide us up to see the column of light that is emanating from White Eagle over in England. So as we are lifted in this column, and we feel the energy and see the column of light coming from England, with our desire and our intention, let our energies connect, arching like a rainbow, to connect the columns. Let us together see the whole earth enfolded in the magical healing light of this shining six-pointed star. We see the light of God shining through the star into the earth's soil, her plants and trees, and the life they support. See this light shining into her streams, rivers, and oceans. See the light shining into her atmosphere. And see this beautiful light shining into the hearts of humankind as they walk on Mother Earth and with all her creatures. We see planet Earth cleansed, healed, and in balance. And send appreciation to the earth for how she sustains us. Send appreciation to White Eagle for the wisdom and love that is always shared. And we send our appreciation to our brothers and sisters at the White Eagle Lodge. Thank you for sharing your light. And gently see our Inner Quest column gently disconnect from their column, their energy, as we slide back down the arch, back to Inner Quest, back into your seat, and back into your heart. And take a deep breath. When you are ready, open your eyes. And thank you for facilitating the healing for the earth. So last Sunday was my birthday, and Mike and I went to Nashville, and part of the celebration was going to see Ringo Starr and his all-star band. It was great. And every one of the All-Stars gets to play a couple of their hits. So it's like seeing 5 concerts in one. So Todd Rundgren was one of the All-Stars, and he started to sing his song, Light of the World, Shine on Me. So I'm standing up and I'm waving my hand, and Mike's standing up. We're one of the few people that are standing for the song, but I felt like I wanted to stand for love and for light, to really taking hold in this world and in people's hearts. So light of the world, shine on me, love is the answer, shine on us all, set us free, love is the answer. So I was loving it. And then later on, when Ringo, one of the songs he sang was a Beatles song for I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends. And everybody's standing up and singing along to that one. And so then they followed that, they closed the concert with John Lennon's song, All I'm Saying Is Give Peace a Chance. And as the Sunday service message was coming together, it dawned on me that those 3 songs that really touched my heart are really good section titles for the 3 different sections for the message today. But as I'm telling the story, I'm realizing that mentioning Todd Rundgren and the Beatles maybe doesn't put me in the theme of the youth for this month. But it's a creative segue, so I get credit for that, right? Last Sunday, David talked about how in a blink of an eye, we can make a judgment on situations, on ourselves, and on others. And in that judgment, we place value, good or bad, on situations, ourselves, and on others. And energetically, with that valuation, we assign labels to ourselves and to others, and we identify with those labels, and we vibrate out from those labels. So if we could, in that moment of judgment, try to catch ourselves and stop ourselves from judging and get to a neutral space, just get to that 50-yard line, get to neutrality, and vibrate from there. Because we don't know enough about anyone's situation to judge it. And really, we don't know enough to be pessimistic. Do you realize that? We don't know enough to be pessimistic about what's going on, because we don't have the whole big picture. And when I listened to David's message, I realized that my message is part 2 to his. So he and I were creatively collaborating with Spirit up in the ethers for our Sunday messages, because my message is called Creative Collaboration. And since this is the month, the theme for the youth, I thought it would be a good idea to interview some of the youth, the younger members of our church, and to ask them how they navigate the world metaphysically. And they all said they know how to clear and center. They clear their energy and get centered with God. So you clear your energy field of any lower vibrating energies and get centered in your heart with the heart of God. And that way you can walk your walk and know whether energies can stick on you. And one young lady said that she used that clear and centering with her mom when her mom was having a hard day, and it helped her mom get better. So if there's anybody out there that does not know what I'm talking about, please find someone from 10 to 16 years of age, and they can help you out and they can tell you about clear and centering. There was another young member that I talked to, and she said she clears and centers, but she still feels sad. She'll clear and center and still feel sad. So is she doing it wrong? No. And this is what Spirit wanted me to expand on. What comes after the clear and centering? For we have these tools that we use to shine our light out to the world, but the conditioning, the judgments that we accept, that we place on our value and worth, cause us to separate, keep a part of us separate. And those separate parts of us all have a story wrapped around them. We create stories to help us understand in a situation that might be uncomfortable, well, who's safe, who's bad, who's good, who wins. And we like these stories because they help us make sense out of what we're feeling. If we're not feeling comfortable, we want to know what's going on. So we create these stories. So let me give you an example. Sunday was my birthday, and I was expecting phone calls from my family, at least from my mom, and I didn't get one. So part of me felt sad. Why wouldn't she call me on my birthday? So I started this story going in my head. Well, she wouldn't call me. I guess she must be mad at me. Well, why would she be mad at me? Well, for Mother's Day, I sent a card and a gift, and I called her and only got her machine, so I left a message. So maybe she didn't get the card and gift, and she's mad at me. And so she's getting back at me by not calling on my birthday. And I have a dysfunctional family, so this is not a very far out story. This could happen. So I'm feeling sad and small and unwanted. But I still enjoy the day, and I'm still enjoying the concert, but I still have that part of me that's feeling sad and feeling small, and still have that story going around. And what we do is when we have this uncomfortable feeling that we're not sure what we want to do with, we put it into a part of us that's already experienced that. The first time that we've experienced hurt, a part of us will separate, and we'll put it over there because we're not sure what to do with that feeling, that experience. So we've had a part of us that separates. So every time we feel that feeling again, and we start playing that story, we'll take that energy in that story and put it more into this part of us that's separate. And so we start having these parts of us that have separated from our true self that are around us. So I have a part that's hurt, that gets hurt and sad and feels unwanted. I'll have a part that could feel like a failure, and I'll put that part over here. So we start to have these parts that are separated from us around us. And those are the parts that can get triggered. So I can clear and I can feel good. And I can center and I can feel good. But then I can also go out and then get triggered because I have these parts that were separate, that were not part of my centering because I've had them separate from my true self. Because we have a true self, which is that part that knows it's always connected to God. It feels so big and expansive, like it feels like this part of this wondrous, huge, galactic beingness that's out there that is touched with love and acceptance. So we have that true self, and then we have the false self. And the false self is that me and all my stories. Me and all my stories. That's the one that gets hurt. Because the I am hurt. It doesn't happen. Because nothing can hurt the I am. Our spirit is too big for stomping on. But the part that can get hurt is that part that's me and my stories that's separate. So when we keep it in separation, it can get hurt. So you've heard of as above, so below, the macrocosm and the microcosm. So the big story, the big wounding of humanity is that first separation from God. And we separated from God. God created us, and then we came down to earth to play and to create. And then we started to get stuck in the lower vibrations, the lower emotions and material stuff, and stuck in duality. And we started to feel uncomfortable and heavy and we experienced pain because we were separated from God. And that separation energy is within us. So on the microcosm plane, we separate from ourselves. We have our true self. But since we know that separation energy, we separate from ourselves. And we then dilute the wholeness of who we are, the wholeness that connects with God. And it's fragmented. So when we take parts of ourselves and separate, we fragment. Okay, is it getting heavy? Okay, just take it over. Okay. So we love, even though the stories can cause us pain, we love our stories because they help us make sense of what's going on with feelings, what we think is going on with the feelings. And so then we have the separation energy and the true self energy. And there's actually a word for that, and it's called confabulation. That's a good word. So confabulation is telling a lie honestly. So even though it's not true that I'm unlovable or that I'm unwanted, I'm totally believing it. And there's a part of me that's really believing that story. So we confabulate a lot. So we keep separating and confabulating. And when we have parts of us having that story running, that narrative of that story determines how we treat other people who are in our story. They don't even realize they're in our story. But then the next time we see them, we're treating them based on the narrative of that story that we've made up. And I know when I'm stuck in a story, I like to just withdraw. And I didn't realize for a long time that isolation was my drug of choice. I just thought that I'm sensitive to energy, so I like to be alone, which is just another story that's going on. So what do we do? Like David said last week, being aware. Be aware when we go into judgment. Be aware when we start that story running. When that story starts going, just be aware. And get neutral. And when you get into that neutral space, on that 50-yard line, then you can ask for clarity. Now, asking for clarity by saying, well, what's up with her, is not asking for clarity. My mom didn't call me, what's up with her? That's placing blame. But to get clarity is saying, well, what was up? What's up with her? What's up with the situation? What's up with me? That's when we can get clarity on the situation. Because when we have the stories, our brain does not take into consideration that communicating can be messy. Communicating in relationships can be messy. And so to have to experience being uncomfortable, because I have to work through some emotions. I mean, I'd rather have a bag of potato chips than have to go, talk about all the emotions and the discomfort of that. So how can we move through the discomfort? Well, we have heard that when you're in a relationship, don't try to change the person. Don't try to change someone when you're in a relationship, really any relationship. But what if we looked at it like this? What if we loved ourselves enough to let someone else change us? What if we loved ourselves enough to let someone else change us? Let them be our mirror without condemning them. So I called my mom. I love myself enough to I love myself enough to go through being uncomfortable to get out of the pain I was feeling. Because that part of me, that separate part, felt unwanted. So I wanted to stop that story. So I called her. And she was really happy to hear from me. And I said, so did you get my Mother's Day card and gift? She said, oh yeah, I got that. And normally she'd acknowledge when she gets something. So she said, well, she was feeling bad. And so she didn't call. So she deals with depression. So if she gets in her space, she withdraws, she isolates. That just came to me. Okay. And so then I asked, well, why didn't you call me on my birthday? And she said she knew that I was out of town, and she doesn't use a cell phone. She has one for emergencies. I don't know if she even knows where it is. And so her world and her mindset, she won't call you if you're not at home because she calls landline to landline. She's not thinking she's calling my cell. So it's just not in her world to call someone when they're out of town on their cell. I'm like, okay, that's not my world, that's her world. And so accepting her where she's at and realizing so that it wasn't about me. That story was a confabulation. Even though I believed it, she must have been mad at me. She wasn't. It had nothing to do with me. She was fine. And so I was grateful that she helped me see a part of me that was in separation, so that I could now embrace that part that feels wounded. We have our wounded child, and we have our inner child. Now the inner child is that initial creative spark when we were created from God. And that inner child is just joyous and free and so creative and so great at just being. We don't have to do anything with that inner child. We don't need to grow it up. It's the wounded child that we need to embrace and help it grow and lift. That wounded child that holds our stories and that we keep in separation. So if we can become aware that yes, we have a part that's in separation, and we don't want to clear it, we don't want to get rid of it, we actually want to embrace it and bring it back in. And then that part that was separate comes back into the whole. When we feel more whole, we feel more present. When we feel more present, we feel more connected with God. And we can feel our wholeness in the oneness with God. So bringing all these separate pieces back into oneness with us first. And then we can really feel that oneness with God. So I was really thankful for my mother in that whole uncomfortable situation. All right, enough about me. How about a Jesus story? Okay. So Jesus was at a feast. Like David said last week, he goes to a lot of parties. And the town he was in, the fire broke out. And so people were yelling fire, and there was a frantic woman. And she was saying, help, because my child is on the upper floors, upper stories of this building. And we can't get her out. The fire, can someone please go get her in because the fire is too strong. So So Jesus came out, and then with a voice that made the spirits of the fire pale and tremble, Jesus said, "Peace, peace, be still." And then he walked through the smoke and flame, climbed up the falling stair, and in a moment came again, and in his arms he brought the child. And not a trace of fire was on himself, his clothing, or the child. Then Jesus raised his hand, rebuked the spirits of the fire, commanding them to cease their awful work and be at rest. And then, as though the waters of the sea were all at once poured on the flames, the fire ceased to burn. And when the fury of the fire was spent, the multitudes were wild to see the man who could control the fire. And Jesus said, "Man was not made for fire was made for man. And when man comes to himself and comprehends the fact that he is son of God or daughter of God, and knows that in himself lie all the powers of God, he is mastermind, and all the elements will hear his voice and gladly do his will. For two things bind the will of man. They are fear and unbelief. When these are caught and turned aside, the will of man will know no bounds. Then man has but to speak, and it is done." So just that, the basic story is a good story. But if we look at it a little deeper, go metaphysically, if we see that this woman, her child, she was suffering, was in, it's in the flaming building. So if we see the flames as emotions and suffering, then that a part of her that was separate from her is in this suffering place. So she calls for help, the Christ within that's strong enough to go through the flames, go through that suffering to get that child and not be hurt. So that Jesus represents our true self. And so that's the part of us that can get through the emotions and the suffering, to get the part of us that went separate, to bring it back in, bring it into safety, bring it into love. And then when Jesus said to the fire, "Peace, peace, be still," if we get to that place within us to be still and know the peace that can be within, that's within us. So we can say peace to the emotions, peace to the stories. Stories, be still, stop. We're going to complete these stories. When Jesus says man was not made for fire, but fire was made for man. We were made for the earth, to be here on the earth, to create and vibrate God and love and be who we are, see what that is, right? So the earth wasn't made for us. The earthly cares, the elements, the fire is the element, and the suffering, if it's the suffering in this example, then that wasn't made for us to take on these burdens and earthly cares. We were here to enjoy the earth, so the earth was made for us. When man comes to himself and comprehends the fact that he is son or daughter of God. So when we get into that space, that true self within us, and we don't just believe, we know and we experience that part of us that is one with God, then our will, which is our choice in life, our will is, we just say it and it is done. We don't have a struggle with our will, so God's saying we become, Jesus says we become mastermind, and all the elements will hear our voice and gladly do our will. Because only we can control our thoughts. So once we can control our thoughts and our choices, then we can feel that oneness within ourselves, and then we can go rescue any parts of us that are separate. And we can conquer the fear and the unbelief. But there's more. There's more to the story. So there was a little child. She came and stood by Jesus. She laid her hand on Jesus' arm and said, "Please, Master Jesus, hear. My father is a drunken man. My mother toils from morn till night, and when she brings her wages home, my father snatches them away and squanders every cent for drink, and mother and us children go hungry. Please, Master Jesus, come with me, touch my father's heart. He is so good and kind when he is just himself. I know it is the wine that makes another man of him." And Jesus went out with the child. He found the wretched home. He spoke in kindness to the mother and the children. And then upon a bed of straw he found the drunken man. He took him by the hand and raised him up and said, "My brother man, made in the image of our Father God, will you arise and come with me? Your neighbors are in sore distress. They have lost all they had in this fierce fire, and men must build their homes again, and you and I will lead the way." And then the man arose. The two went arm in arm to view the wrecks. They heard the mothers and children crying in the streets. Jesus said, "My friend, here is a work for you to do. Just lead the way in helpfulness. I'm sure the men of Bethany will furnish you the means and help." The spark of hope that had so long been smoldering in the man was fanned into a flame. He threw his ragged coat aside. He was himself again. And then he called for help, not for himself, but for the homeless ones. And everybody helped. The ruined homes were built again. Then he saw his own poor den. His heart was stirred into its depths. The pride of manhood filled his soul. He said, "This wretched den shall be a home." He worked as he had never worked before, and everybody helped. And in a little while, the den became a home indeed. The flowers of love bloomed everywhere. The mother and children were filled with joy. The father never drank again. A man was saved, and no one ever said a word about neglect or drunkenness or urged him to reform. So if we look at this part of the story the same way, so we have the child, we can see her as that asks for help, the inner child. We have Jesus that represents the true self, and the drunken father that represents the false self. So Jesus, our true self, goes to the false self. It says he took him by the hand and raised him up. And then he asked him, "Will you arise and come with me?" So the first part said he took him by the hand and raised him up. But he didn't actually raise him up, because that comes later when he asked him, "Will you get up and come with me?" So with him saying he took him by the hand and raised him up, he lifted his vibration. He acknowledged him, saw the good in him, and said, "Come, don't be separate. Come with me." He lifted the vibration. So if we let our true self go to a part of us that is separate, acknowledge it, see that it's a part of us and that it is good, it's just stuck in a story, help it raise its vibration so it can come within, back into the true self. And so then the man arose, and they went arm in arm. So then you have your true self with this part that's separate, connected, coming together. And he says, there's something for you to do. There's work for you to do. There's something for us to do. We can't just say, "Oh gosh, we're separate and we're in pain and we're suffering." It's like, there's actually something I can do. I can take this separate part of me and bring it back into my heart. So there's something for us to do. There's action for us to take. Then the spark of hope that had so long been smoldering in the man was fanned into a flame. So when there's something we can do, that gives us hope. And when you start to feel that hope and you start to feel that fullness within you again, that starts to shift your energy. And you want to bring those parts of you that are separate back into the wholeness of you. And then he had worked as he had never had before. And his home became a home indeed, and flowers bloomed everywhere. So that the drunken man, being drunk, he's just numbing out. He's not wanting to feel the feelings. The feelings were uncomfortable, not wanting to deal with them. So that's just representing not wanting to deal with the feelings of being separate. So having that hope and that love energy within his heart will give us the strength to be able to deal with the uncomfortableness. We don't have to numb out. We don't have to try to numb out somewhere. That we can just accept the feelings we have and who we are. And love that part of ourselves, love ourselves in that. And so the man that was saved, no one else has ever said another word about the neglect or the drunkenness. So that story was complete. He threw his ragged cloak off. He threw off the labels that he had on himself that was keeping him down. And then no one ever talked about the story again. So he completed that story. He didn't keep that label on himself anymore. So I just love that story. That could help us to, if you were to read that and really take in the steps of seeing a part of yourself that might be numbing out, that might have labels on you, and embracing it and shifting its energy to bring it in within you. So what do we do to complete the story? So we said we want to complete feeling separate, and we want to complete the story of being in separation. We can get help. Get help any way you can. We don't have to do this alone. We have creative collaboration, so we can do it by getting a healing. Come here, get a healing. We have the head knowledge. We can think, oh, I know, I'm lovable, and I know I'm wanted, I'm good. We can think that, but we want to feel it and know it and operate from that. Know that I am loved, that I am good and successful and fabulous. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of space between connecting your head and your heart, but there's a lot that's in between there. So there's conditioning and judgments, there's past life stuff, and there's ancestral stuff. So wherever you feel guided, get the help to help clear that so that you can bring those parts that are separate back into your heart. Okay. God isn't waiting for us to be perfect and then embrace us, because God just embraces us right here where we are. And perfection is a mathematical concept. Perfection should not be used as a human concept. You hear we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, then let's be spiritual beings having this great human experience. Why do we have to make it sound negative, being human? Let's have a fantastic human experience. And see other people as our mirrors, because when something happens, everything means something, but nothing really matters. Everything means something, but nothing really matters. So you don't have to get bogged down in all the details, but the universe is telling you, giving you information all the time of where you're separate and where you can come back into wholeness. Because we don't have to grow into God, we just need to melt into God. So if you want to take a moment to melt into God, if you would just close your eyes and get comfortable. And see a column of light coming down around you. And feel that light in your heart again. That light in your heart. And know that you are in a sacred and safe space. And in this space, your desire to be of service for yourself, for your healing. And feel your expansiveness, feel your oneness with God. Feel the love that you are. Feel the acceptance of your true self, the joyous inner child that is within you. And from this space, invite a part of you that has been separate from the wholeness of you. Invite a separate part of you to come forward. Call out to one. If you feel a trigger or a situation, follow that to a part of you that's been separated. And when you feel or see this part of you, just take a moment to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it is a part of you and that you want to welcome it home. And from the center of your heart, see this part of you being bathed in light. So that its energy, its vibration can lift. That its story can cease repeating over and over. See this part of you vibrating, lifting. That this part of you is yearning to be brought back into the wholeness of their true self. And embrace it into your heart. Embrace it. Take it in your arms and bring it into your heart. To fully accept it. And to be willing to complete the story of separation that was surrounding it. And be willing to do whatever work you need to do to heal this part that you've brought back within you, if there's any other work that needs to be done. Because you know you have the support of Jesus within your heart always. So just take a deep breath, breathe that in. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So you can control your thoughts. So choose to be whole in the heart of God. Be complete. Say, I'm complete with the stories of separation. Be in curiosity, not judgment. You know, that what cracks you open is not as important as that which gets cracked open. So allow yourself to get cracked open. Allow yourself to be shown what's in separation, because bringing that back into whole just feels so good. And it just feels good to feel good. So let your go-to story, if you feel yourself starting to create a story, let your go-to story be that you are a destination for love. Because all we are saying is give peace a chance.